The massive research vessel, Stellar Pioneer, drifted silently through the outer reaches of unexplored space. Its weathered hull bore the marks of countless expeditions, each scratch and dent telling stories of adventures across the stars. At its observation deck, James Miller stood motionless, his eyes fixed on the strange readings flooding his holographic display. "This can't be right," he muttered, adjusting the sensors for the fifth time. The readings remained unchanged. Something massive was blocking their path, something that shouldn't exist in this empty region of space. Miller, a veteran archaeologist with 15 years of deep space exploration under his belt, had seen his fair share of anomalies. But this was different. The energy signature stretched across an entire solar system, forming a perfect sphere of shimmering, barely visible energy. "Captain Rogers," he called through the ship's communication system, "you need to see this." The captain arrived minutes later, her boots making soft thuds against the metal floor. She was a tall woman with graying hair and eyes that had seen too many strange things to be easily surprised. But even she stopped short when she saw the barrier. "What are we looking at, Miller?" she asked, her voice steady despite the uncertainty in her eyes. "It's artificial, Captain. The energy pattern is too perfect to be natural." Miller pulled up more detailed scans, and here's the really interesting part. Based on the decay rate of the particles, this barrier is millions of years old. Captain Rogers leaned closer to the display. "Millions? That predates most known civilizations." "All known civilizations," Miller corrected. "The oldest records we have only go back 500,000 years. This is something else entirely." The discovery quickly turned the Stellar Pioneer into a hive of activity. Scientists from various departments crowded the observation deck, running tests and arguing over theories. The ship's eye processed mountains of data, trying to make sense of the barrier's composition. Miller worked through ship's night cycles, sleeping only when exhaustion forced him to. There was something familiar about the pattern of the barrier, something that nagged at the edge of his consciousness. He had seen something similar before, in ancient texts discovered on abandoned worlds. 3 days after the initial discovery, he finally made the connection. "Look at this," he called out during the morning briefing. His hand shook as he projected an image from his personal database. It showed a fragment of text, accompanied by a crude drawing of a spherical barrier. This was found in the ruins of the Centauri system last year. The text speaks of a sealed star, a place where those who came before locked away something too powerful to remain free. The room fell silent. Captain Rogers was the first to speak. "Are you suggesting this barrier was built to contain something? Or to protect something?" Miller said. "The text isn't clear. But whatever's inside, someone went to extraordinary lengths to keep it isolated from the rest of the galaxy." Initial scans of the solar system within the barrier revealed 8 planets orbiting a yellow star, similar to countless other systems. But the third planet from the sun showed signs of artificial structures, cities, perhaps, or the remains of civilization. The discovery sent shockwaves through the galactic scientific community. Within weeks, more research vessels arrived, creating a makeshift observation post at the edge of the barrier. Each new scan revealed more questions than answers. "Whatever we found," Miller said one evening, watching the barrier shimmer in the starlight, "it's going to change everything we thought we knew about galactic history." He didn't know then just how right he was. The barrier had kept its secret for millions of years, waiting for the right moment, the right people to uncover its mystery. As Miller stared at the ancient construct, he couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't just observers in this discovery. They were being watched, evaluated, and perhaps even expected. The first part of a much larger mystery had been unveiled, and somewhere behind that shimmering wall of energy, answers waited to be found. Answers that would shake the very foundation of galactic civilization. 3 months after the discovery, the Galactic Council finally approved the barrier breach attempt. The operation drew the largest gathering of scientific vessels in recorded history. 50 ships formed a wide circle around the chosen entry point, their sensors focused on the shimmering wall of energy. Miller stood at his usual spot on the Stellar Pioneer's observation deck, his heart pounding. Next to him, Dr. Robert Stone, the Council's lead physicist, made final adjustments to the breach device. "If this works," Stone said, wiping sweat from his forehead, "we'll be the first beings to see what's inside in millions of years." The breach device, a sleek silver cylinder twice the size of a human, hummed to life. Energy beams from all 50 ships connected to it, feeding it power. The barrier rippled where the beams touched it, like stones disturbing a pond surface. "Energy output at 70%, Stone announced. 80, 90, full power." The barrier resistance suddenly vanished. A hole opened, small at first, then growing larger until it could fit a ship. Through the opening, they caught their first clear glimpse of the sealed solar system. "Launch the probes," Captain Rogers ordered. Dozens of unmanned probes shot through the opening, spreading out across the system. Their data began flooding back almost immediately. 8 planets, just as we thought," Miller said, reading the incoming information. "The third one, it's showing signs of extensive development. Cities, infrastructure. But," he trailed off, staring at the readings in disbelief. "But what?" Rogers asked. "There's no one there. The planet is empty." The probes confirmed it. The third planet, which they would later confirm was called Earth, was covered in the remains of an advanced civilization. Massive cities stretched across continents, transportation systems connected every corner of the globe, and orbital platforms circled the planet. But there wasn't a single living being anywhere. "It's like everyone just vanished," Stone whispered. The Stellar Pioneer was the first ship to pass through the breach. As they approached Earth, the scale of the abandonment became clear. The cities below were perfectly preserved, protected from decay by unknown technology. Parks and gardens still grew, maintained by automated systems. Vehicles sat in streets, waiting for drivers who would never return. "Look at this technology," Stone said, examining readings from the surface. "Some of it, I can't even understand how it works. These people, whoever they were far more advanced than we are now." Miller led the first ground team into one of the larger cities. They materialized on a wide street, surrounded by towering buildings that reached into the clouds. The air was clean, the temperature perfect, all maintained by systems that had run without fail for millions of years. "This doesn't make sense," one of the team members said. "Why would anyone abandon all this? Where did they go?" Their questions echoed through empty streets. They passed shops with products still on shelves, offices with documents still on desks, homes with meals still set on tables. It was as if the entire population had vanished in the middle of a normal day. Then they found the message. It was projected in the center of what appeared to be a government building, a hologram showing a simple string of words in various languages. "The truth lies on Mars." Miller reported the discovery to the captain immediately. Within hours, ships were dispatched to the Red Planet, where they found something even more extraordinary. A facility built deep underground, its systems still running, waiting for someone to find it. "Whatever happened here," Miller said, staring at the initial scans of the Mars facility, "it wasn't an extinction event or a disaster. These people, whoever they were, they left everything like this on purpose. They wanted us to find it." As the exploration teams prepared to enter the Mars facility, none of them realized they were about to uncover a truth that would shake the galaxy to its core. The empty cities of Earth were just the beginning. The real story, the reason for the barrier, the fate of this vanished civilization, was waiting for them beneath the red sands of Mars. The Mars facility stretched deep beneath the planet's surface, its pristine corridors illuminated by lights that activated as the exploration team moved forward. Miller led the way, followed by Anna White, the team's data specialist, and 4 other researchers. "The preservation here is even better than Earth," White said, running her scanner over the metallic walls. "These systems aren't just maintained. They're actively upgraded by some kind of self-evolving AI. They reached a massive circular door at the end of the main corridor. Symbols scrolled across its surface in a language none of them recognized. The door opened smoothly as they approached, revealing what looked like a control center. "This is it," Miller breathed. "The main archive." The room was dominated by a central platform surrounded by floating holographic displays. As the team entered, the systems activated automatically. A voice spoke in multiple languages, finally settling on their modern galactic standard. "Archive access granted. Welcome, successors." White stepped onto the platform, her fingers dancing over the control interface. "It's incredible. The data storage here, it's beyond anything we've ever developed." These archives contain their entire history. The first files opened, projecting images and text into the air around them. They showed a civilization's journey, humanity's journey, from primitive beginnings to heights that made current galactic technology look primitive in comparison. "They called themselves humans," White said, absorbed in the data. "And they weren't primitive at all. Look at this. They went from their first powered flight to faster-than-light travel in less than 300 years. That's impossible. No species develops that fast." More information flooded the displays. The humans had mastered energy generation, gravity manipulation, and even began experimenting with dimensional physics. Their advancement rate was exponential, each breakthrough leading to dozens more. "Here's something," one of the researchers called out. "A record of their first contact with other civilizations. But this can't be right. According to this, they weren't discovered by others. They found them." Miller moved to examine the data. The record showed human ships venturing out into the galaxy, discovering and observing other developing civilizations. But they did so in secret, hidden from view. "They were watching us," Miller realized. "All this time we thought we were the discoverers, but they saw us first, long ago." White found more records, these marked with high priority tags. They discovered something else out there. Something that was also watching. Not just them, but all developing civilizations. They called them the Watchers. The archives showed humanity's first encounter with these ancient beings. The humans had detected their observation platforms, traced them back to their origins, and done something unprecedented. They confronted them directly. The Watchers had been guiding galactic evolution for billions of years. White read, her voice shaking. Steering species, controlling their development, ensuring none advanced too quickly or in the wrong directions. But they couldn't control humanity. Human advancement was too rapid, too unpredictable. The final sections of the archives painted a clear picture. The Watchers had seen humanity as a threat, not because they were hostile, but because they were too dynamic, too adaptable. They represented a fundamental challenge to the carefully maintained order of galactic evolution. "That's why the barrier exists," Miller said softly. "But the humans built it, not the Watchers. They chose to seal themselves away." White nodded, still reading. "There's more. This facility, these archives, they're not just records. They're a message meant for whoever found them. And a warning." The team stood in silence, surrounded by the history of a civilization that had advanced so far they had stepped away from the galaxy itself. But as they studied the archives, none of them noticed a subtle change in the facility's systems, a countdown that had begun the moment they accessed the core data. The truth of humanity's disappearance was hidden in those archives, but so was something else, a timetable, a plan set in motion millions of years ago. The barrier wasn't meant to last forever. It was waiting for the right moment. And that moment was approaching faster than anyone realized. The research team spent weeks analyzing the archives, piecing together the story of the Watchers. White barely left the facility, sleeping only when exhaustion overwhelmed her. On the 15th day, she found something that made her blood run cold. "Miller," she called out, her voice echoing through the archive chamber. "You need to see this." The holographic display showed beings of pure energy, their forms shifting like auroras in space. The Watchers had evolved beyond physical form billions of years ago, becoming entities that existed between dimensions. They were the first, White explained, scrolling through the data. The first species to achieve consciousness in our galaxy. They watched as life evolved, as civilizations rose and fell. They considered themselves guardians, protecting younger species from advancing too quickly. Miller studied the images. Protecting them from what? From themselves. White pulled up another file. The Watchers had seen countless civilizations destroy themselves by advancing too rapidly. They believed controlled evolution was the only safe path. But then they found Earth. The archives showed the moment the Watchers first detected human civilization. They had expected another slowly developing species. Instead, they found something unprecedented. A species that evolved and adapted at an alarming rate. Look at their observations. White pointed to streams of data. Humans would encounter a problem, solve it, and immediately use that solution to solve 10 more problems. Each solution sparked new ideas, new possibilities. The Watchers had never seen anything like it. The records revealed the Watchers' growing concern. They had protocols for guiding species, subtle ways of slowing development when needed. But their usual methods didn't work on humans. They tried to slow Earth's progress, Miller read, manipulated weather patterns, caused resource scarcity, even triggered conflicts. But humans adapted to every challenge. Each obstacle made them stronger, more innovative. White nodded. The Watchers realized they had encountered something they couldn't control. Humanity's rate of advancement wasn't just unusual, it was exponential. Their simulations showed that at this rate, humans would surpass even the Watchers' level of development within a few thousand years. The archives displayed the Watchers' final assessment of humanity. It wasn't hatred or fear that drove their actions. It was pure mathematical certainty. They had calculated that human advancement would destabilize the careful balance they had maintained for billions of years. Here's where it gets interesting, White said, accessing a secured section of the archives. The Watchers decided humanity needed to be contained. They prepared to isolate Earth completely, seal it away where human advancement couldn't influence other species. But before they could act, she paused, double-checking the translation. Before they could act, humans detected them. Not just their observation posts, but their true forms. Humanity had already developed technology to perceive cross-dimensional entities. They saw the Watchers, understood what they were, and did something completely unexpected. Miller leaned forward. What did they do? They invited them to talk. The archives showed the first direct contact between humans and the Watchers. No species had ever initiated contact with them before. The Watchers, for the first time in billions of years, found themselves responding to a younger race as equals. The humans proposed a compromise, White continued. But before the archives show what it was, there's a gap in the records. Something happened during those negotiations, something that changed everything. Miller was about to respond when the facility's lights flickered. New symbols appeared on the main display, clustering into a pattern they hadn't seen before. What's happening? Miller asked. White's fingers flew over the controls. The archive is shifting to a new phase. These records we've been accessing, they're only the surface level. There's something deeper here, something that's been waiting for the right moment to be revealed. The chamber hummed with energy as more systems activated. Whatever compromise humanity had reached with the Watchers, they were about to discover it. But as the new data began to flow, both researchers realized they might not be ready for the truth it contained. The archive chamber transformed around them as deeper levels of data emerged. Three-dimensional images filled the air, showing the historic meeting between humanity and the Watchers. Leading the human delegation was Commander Thomas Reed, his expression calm despite facing beings of pure energy. "This is incredible," White whispered, watching the scene unfold. They recorded everything. The meeting took place in a specially constructed chamber on Europa, Jupiter's ice moon. The humans had chosen this neutral ground, creating an environment where both physical and energy beings could exist comfortably. Reed's voice echoed through time. We understand your concerns. You've watched civilizations destroy themselves through rapid advancement. But we're offering a different path. The Watcher's response came as patterns of light and energy, translated by the Archive's systems. Your species advances too rapidly. The pattern is clear. You will either destroy yourselves or destabilize the galaxy's development. Or, Reed countered, we could show you something new. You've spent billions of years protecting other species from advancement. But what if advancement itself isn't the threat? What if the threat is advancing without wisdom? The archives showed the evidence humanity presented. They revealed how each crisis they'd faced had taught them crucial lessons. Their wars had led to stronger peace treaties. Environmental disasters had taught them planetary stewardship. Even their worst mistakes had pushed them to be better. We're not asking you to let us run unchecked through the galaxy, Reed continued. We're proposing a partnership. The Watcher's energy patterns shifted, showing what the archives translated as surprise. In billions of years, no species had ever suggested collaborating with them. Look at this, White pointed to a data stream. The humans had already developed theories about the Watcher's own evolution. They understood things about these ancient beings that even the Watchers had forgotten. The negotiations continued for days. The humans proposed something unprecedented. They would seal themselves away voluntarily, not as prisoners, but as students. They would use the time to prove they could advance responsibly. But there was more to it, Miller said, studying the data. The humans had discovered something about the Watchers, something that changed everything. White nodded, pulling up more records. The Watchers had become trapped by their own evolution. They'd grown so powerful, so perfect, that they'd stopped advancing. They were static, unchanged for billions of years. And the humans terrified them because they represented true evolution, Miller finished. Constant change, adaptation, growth. The final meeting showed Reed making humanity's ultimate proposal. They would enter a voluntary exile, using the time to complete their development. But they added conditions that stunned the Watchers. When we return, Reed declared, we won't just be more advanced. We'll help you remember how to change, how to grow. You've spent so long protecting other species that you've forgotten how to evolve yourselves. The chamber filled with new data as the archives revealed the terms of the agreement. Humanity would seal their solar system away, using technology that even the Watchers didn't fully understand. But it wouldn't be permanent. There's more, White said suddenly, her voice tense. The barrier. It's not just a containment field. It's a cocoon. The final records showed the true scope of humanity's plan. They hadn't just agreed to isolation. They had embarked on a transformation. The empty cities on Earth weren't abandoned. They were preserved, waiting. Miller stared at the data in awe. They weren't running away. They were preparing for something bigger. Before they could process this revelation, new symbols appeared on the main display. A countdown, hidden in the facility's systems, had reached a critical point. The archives had shared their secrets, but the biggest revelation was still to come. Whatever humanity had become during their self-imposed exile, they had planned for this moment. The question wasn't just what they had transformed into. It was whether the galaxy was ready for their return. The next section of the archives opened with scenes from humanity's final days in physical form. Streets filled with people looking up at the sky, not in fear, but in anticipation. The transformation was about to begin. These records, White said, her voice hushed, they're showing the last hours before humanity's metamorphosis. The images showed massive energy collectors being activated around the planet. Buildings glowed with strange light as power flowed through specially designed circuits that covered entire cities. But most striking were the faces of the people, calm, determined, ready. They knew exactly what they were doing, Miller observed. This wasn't a desperate last resort. It was a carefully planned evolution. The archives revealed humanity's incredible discovery. They had found a way to transcend physical form, not by abandoning their bodies like the Watchers had, but by transforming matter itself into a new state of existence. Commander Reed's final speech played through the facility. Today, we take a step that no species has ever attempted. We won't just change our forms, we'll rewrite the very rules of what life can be. The cities we leave behind will stand as proof of what we were, and as promise of what will become. The records showed the process beginning. Energy waves rippled through Earth's atmosphere as billions of humans simultaneously began their transformation. Their physical forms dissolved into patterns of pure energy, but unlike the Watchers, they maintained their individuality, their human essence. Look at these readings, White pointed to streams of data. They didn't just turn into energy beings. They created an entirely new state of existence, something between matter and energy, between dimensions. The transformation spread across the planet like a wave of golden light. Cities fell silent as their inhabitants evolved beyond the need for physical form. But everything was left exactly as it had been, preserved by advanced technology for those who would eventually find it. They left us a perfect snapshot, Miller realized. Every city, every building, every artifact. It's all exactly as it was at the moment of transformation. They wanted us to understand who they had been. The final stages of the process showed the newly transformed humanity preparing for their long wait. They existed now as beings of light and thought, able to move between dimensions, but they didn't leave. Instead, they created a new realm of existence within the barrier, a space where they could continue to grow and evolve. This is remarkable, White said, studying the data. The barrier isn't just keeping things out, it's sustaining an entire civilization in a higher dimensional state. They've been here all along, just beyond our ability to perceive them. The archives showed the barrier's activation, its energy field encompassing the entire solar system. But it wasn't designed just to contain. It was a vast machine, monitoring the galaxy's development, waiting for the right moment. They left markers, Miller said, pointing to new data streams, specific signs of technological and social development they were waiting for. The barrier wasn't meant to last forever, just long enough for the rest of the galaxy to be ready. The final records revealed humanity's ultimate sacrifice. They had given up their physical existence, their place in the normal universe, not out of fear, but out of responsibility. They understood that their presence would have too great an impact on other developing species. They chose isolation, White said softly, so everyone else could develop naturally. But they never stopped watching, never stopped learning. As the last records played out, a new alert appeared on the main display. The barrier's monitoring systems had detected something. A threshold had been crossed. The galaxy had reached a point in its development that humanity had been waiting for. Miller and White stared at each other as they realized what this meant. The countdown they'd noticed earlier wasn't just marking time. It was marking the approach of humanity's planned return. "They're coming back," Miller whispered. "After all these millions of years, they're ready to return." But what have they become? The facility's systems hummed with increasing energy as ancient machinery began to wake up. Whatever humanity had transformed into, they were about to reveal themselves to a galaxy that had never truly known them. Alarms blared across every research vessel surrounding Earth. The barrier that had stood for millions of years was changing, its energy patterns shifting into new configurations. On the Stellar Pioneers Bridge, Captain Rogers watched as golden light rippled across the solar system. "All readings are off the scale," Stone reported, his instruments overwhelmed by the energy surge. "The barrier isn't breaking down, it's transforming." In the Mars facility, Miller and White rushed to decode the new data flooding the archives. The chamber hummed with power as ancient systems activated fully for the first time in millions of years. "It's happening," White said, her eyes fixed on the displays. "The transformation they planned. It's beginning." The barrier's light intensified, becoming a sphere of pure golden energy. Then, like a flower blooming, it began to open. But instead of collapsing, it folded into higher dimensions, revealing what it had hidden for so long. Points of light appeared throughout the solar system, countless tiny stars of consciousness that had once been human. They moved with purpose, forming intricate patterns in space. Each point contained what had once been thousands of human minds, evolved and grown together over millions of years. "They're beautiful," Miller whispered, watching through the facility's enhanced sensors. A voice spoke through every communication system in the solar system, transmitted in all known languages simultaneously. "We have watched. We have waited. We have grown. Now it is time for reunion." The transformed humans began to take shape, creating forms that physical beings could comprehend. They appeared as towers of golden light, their structures impossibly complex, shifting between dimensions. But somehow, they still retained something recognizably human in their patterns. "Greetings, children of the galaxy," the voice continued. "We are humanity, though we have become something more. We seal ourselves away not in fear, but in hope. Hope that when we returned, you would be ready to understand." The Stellar Pioneer's sensors detected similar transformations happening near other stars. The Watchers were revealing themselves too, drawn to this moment they had agreed to eons ago. "Look," White pointed to new data streaming through the archives. They didn't just evolve themselves. They found a way to help the Watchers remember how to change, how to grow again. This isn't just humanity's return. It's a renewal for the oldest beings in the galaxy. The transformed humans spread out across the solar system, reactivating ancient structures, awakening sleeping technology that made the most advanced galactic science look primitive. But they moved carefully, conscious of how their actions would affect the younger races watching in awe. "We remember what it is to be as you are," the voice explained. "We chose this path to preserve your natural development, but also to become something that could truly help guide the galaxy's future, not through control, as the Watchers once did, but through understanding and growth." Captain Rogers watched as a form of pure light approached her ship. Despite its alien appearance, she felt no fear, only a profound sense of recognition, as if meeting a long-lost ancestor who had become something wondrous. In the Mars facility, the archives revealed their final message. "We are not your masters or your gods. We are your family, returned from a long journey. We have learned, grown, and transformed. Now we offer what we have learned to all who wish to understand." The galaxy would never be the same. The return of humanity, not as conquerors or destroyers, but as guides and teachers, marked the beginning of a new era. They had sacrificed their physical existence and waited millions of years, all to ensure they could help the galaxy's younger races navigate the challenges of advancement without losing their essence. As the transformed humans settled back into the universe they had left behind, their light touched every corner of the galaxy. They had become what they had hoped to be, beings who could bridge the gap between the physical and the infinite, between the past and the future. The truth that had terrified the galaxy was not one of destruction or dominance, but of transformation and growth. Humanity had become something greater, not by conquering or controlling, but by choosing to evolve with wisdom and purpose. The long wait was over. The next chapter in the galaxy's story was about to begin.